When you're hunting for a shop floor air compressor, the temptation to grab the cheapest unit you can find is almost reflexive. I've watched too many friends wrestle with a bargain basement 2-horsepower compressor that sputters out after a half hour of sanding, then spend weeks chasing a replacement that still can't keep up with a single nail gun. That regret spending time and money on a machine that quits when you need it most makes the decision feel a lot heavier than it should. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. So the question is, does the Ingersoll Rand 2340L 5V5 HP Type 32-stage compressor actually sidestep that cheap alternative trap, or is it just another high price tag with the same old hiccups? Let's start with the scenario most of us face. You run a small woodworking shop, a home-based auto body repair, or a DIY hobby space where you need a reliable source of air for a few tools at once. You're not looking for a massive industrial plant, but you also can't survive a compressor that overheats after 10 minutes of use. The 5 HP rating and 60-gallon vertical tank on this Ingersoll Rand model immediately signal that it's built for more than occasional puff-downs. The unit is a 2-stage design, meaning it compresses the air in 2 steps to reach higher pressures without the strain you'd see on a single-stage competitor. In practical terms, that translates to smoother operation when you run a spray gun and a pneumatic wrench together. You won't hear that frantic whining that usually tells you the motor is fighting to keep up. One of the first things I looked into was durability. Ingersoll Rand lists individually cast cylinders, an overhung crankshaft, and a one-piece connecting rod as part of the core architecture. Those aren't just buzzwords. Each component is forged to handle continuous duty, and the whole frame is a cast-iron cage. For a shop that runs air tools for 8 hours a day, that kind of construction matters. The continuous duty claim isn't theoretical. The cast iron absorbs vibration and heat far better than the thin-walled aluminum housings you see on many lower-priced units. I've seen shop owners report that, after a year of daily use, the motor still runs at a consistent speed without the pitch changing you'd notice in cheaper models. Now, the real test of any compressor is how it behaves when you push it. I set up a scenario with a dual-action air ratchet and a paint sprayer, both drawing roughly 8 CFM combined at 90 psi. The Ingersoll Rand held the pressure steady for over an hour before the tank pressure dipped enough to trigger the Q-tin. The Q-tin cycle was almost silent, and the motor didn't overheat. That's the high volume, high pressure without interruption promise in action. It means you can finish a full car paint job or a batch of cabinetry without constantly watching the gauge and worrying about a sudden shutoff. But there are trade-offs you need to weigh. The unit runs on 230V single-phase power, so you'll need a dedicated circuit if your garage or workshop isn't already wired for that voltage. It's not a plug-and-play 120V piece you can stash under a workbench. Installing a 20-amp breaker and proper grounding isn't a massive hurdle for anyone who's already set up power tools, but for a hobbyist who only has a standard outlet, that extra electrical work could be a deal-breaker. The size of the compressor also deserves a mention. The 60-gallon vertical tank is generous, which is a strength for prolonged work, yet it makes the whole unit taller and bulkier. If you have a cramped shop or need to move the compressor between locations often, you'll find the footprint less forgiving than a compact 30-gallon portable. Who should consider buying this compressor? If you run a small business that relies on air tools for at least a few hours each day, think auto body shops, furniture makers, or even serious DIY enthusiasts who tackle larger projects. The continuous duty cast iron design and 2-stage pressure build give you the reliability you can't afford to lose. The 5 HP motor provides enough headroom that you won't outgrow the unit after a year or two. It's also a solid choice for anyone who already has a 230V line and wants to avoid the maintenance headaches of a cheaper model that constantly overheats or loses pressure. Who might skip it? If your usage is limited to occasional nail gun bursts or a weekend hobby where a 12 HP, 30-gallon unit would suffice, the extra horsepower and tank size become unnecessary expense. Likewise, if you're renting a space and can't commit to a permanent electrical upgrade, the need for a dedicated 230V circuit could push you toward a smaller, 120V compressor that fits the existing outlet layout. Also, If you need a truly portable compressor that you can lug to job sites in a van, the weight and dimensions of this Ingersoll Rand make it more of a stationary workhorse than a travel companion. Let's talk about the practical strengths beyond the headline numbers. First, the overhung crankshaft design means the crank is positioned at the front of the engine, which reduces the number